Have you ever rolled your eyes when some well-meaning stranger suggested that you practice yoga to cure your migraine? Well, so you're definitely not alone, but there might be a kernel of truth to that suggestion. Yoga does not cure migraine. There is no cure for migraine, but it can absolutely help reduce your symptoms. And it has been a huge part of my own recovery from chronic migraine and something that has been instrumental in helping my own clients drastically reduce their migraine days by at least half. So if you're just joining me and haven't met me before, my name is Adrienne Delorco. I myself have been living with migraine for 15 years, and today I'm sharing how yoga can help migraine. I'll share evidence, I'll share many of the same questions and answers that came to me in my interview in 2021 in the Migraine World Summit. So this was an interview that I was so honored to give. I was amongst doctors with MDs and little old me, the yoga teacher, talking about the benefits of yoga for migraine. Since not everybody is able to watch that interview, you had to, at this point, pay to have access to it. I wanted to just share so much of the information from that interview for you all. If you are joining me live, I'd love to see you in the comments. Write hashtag live, say hello, where you're from. If you're joining me on a future replay, write hashtag replay. It just helps get this video out to more eyes. And if you have any particular questions about yoga and migraine, how to practice it, why it's beneficial, what triggers to avoid, anything that I don't cover, feel free to shoot it in the comments and I will be doing this live and interactive so we can reach out. So first I want to just share my own story about yoga and migraine. I've practiced yoga since I was 13 years old. I started out from a book and then progressed to classes. Eventually, in my young 20s, I was doing very active, intense, heated yoga classes that I loved. But when I was diagnosed with migraine, I was unable to do some of the same type of intense active yoga practices that I used to do. I definitely could not handle heated studios, and my own yoga practice just kind of crumbled with so many aspects of my life when I developed chronic migraine. It was something that I definitely missed practicing, but there's a part of me that knew that there's got to be a way to create a type of style, curate a yoga practice that would be healing for migraine and not triggering. And so that really became my own life's mission, to create a yoga practice that would be helpful for people living with migraine, to help them live better, to increase their mental health and decrease their symptoms, to help people feel more relaxed and at ease. And so I've now created my own style of yoga that is particular just to people living with migraine. I'm unaware of anyone else who is also a yoga teacher that is living with migraine that is as targeted as I am. But I welcome more yoga teachers who can address the unique needs of people living with migraine. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about what some of those unique needs are and why it's important to find the right type of yoga to help you. So in my own story, I found yoga to be triggering. I couldn't handle heat, the physical intensity, moving up and down. And so for so many people living with migraine, they've also experienced similar triggers from their migraine practice that have turned them off to yoga, got to the point where they don't feel like they can do yoga anymore, that it's intimidating, it's just not the right thing. So in my own research, I've surveyed almost 200 people living with migraine a few years ago about their yoga and exercise habits, and nearly 75% of all the people I surveyed have had experienced some trigger in a yoga class rather. And the triggers kind of fell into two main categories. One was the physical environment in which they practiced the yoga, such as a studio or gym. And the second was from the yoga practice itself. So I want to share that you are not alone if yoga has not always agreed with you and migraine, but there are ways to make it work for you and styles that work, which I'll talk about. So, hi Barbara, glad you're here. Feel free to add any comments or questions in the comments for me to answer. So some of the top triggers for people living with migraine in terms of the actual physical yoga practice include inversions. These are where your head is lower than your heart. It could be a down dog. It could be even an intense back bend. So in my yoga for migraine practice that I teach, we do not do inversions just because they are such a common trigger. And if I do, I give some options and they're very mild. So that was one of the top triggers. Heated studios are a major trigger for many people living with migraine, and just one of the most common styles in the West of yoga is called vinyasa. It's a style that links breath with movement, and it tends to be more active, including sun salutations. You're going up and down quickly. And so, especially for people living with vestibular migraine, up and down is not beneficial. And just for classic migraine, those the physical intensity and the change of pressure on your head moving up and down is not great. So what I try to do in my yoga for migraine classes is that we move very slowly. There are lots of time in between transitions, and we just don't do those up and down movements with much speed. We take our time. We give you options using props to decrease the change of angle for your head. So we make yoga accessible, physically accessible. And we use props all the time, from blocks to bolsters, to make the pose work for you rather than have you try to fit yourself into a pose that doesn't work. And lastly, some of the common migraine triggers you might experience just going to a yoga studio could be the lights. I've been to yoga classes with like blaring music and lights. So incense can be a challenge. So finding either practicing in your own personal space, which is what I love to do on a daily basis, or looking out and testing out studios to find gentle yoga, restorative yoga, yoga that is yin or slow, something that's going to be able to be soothing. And you can ask the teacher, you can tell them that you have migraine, that you prefer not to have sense. So stand up for yourself, advocate for yourself, and know that there's so many options to practice at home as well. So let's get into the benefits of yoga. Yoga itself has been around thousands of years. It is at its heart much more than just a fitness regimen, which is how it's usually seen in the West. Maybe it's like, okay, I'm going to get fit and reduce my stress. That can be a big part of it, but it's definitely not the only part. At its heart, it's a method of self-inquiry, of liberation, of looking within, and in the wake of all that, there are countless physical and mental benefits to doing so. So let's talk about what those are for migraine itself. First and foremost is that stress reduction benefit. 4 out of 5 people living with migraine do report stress to be one of their top triggers. And so yoga is so effective at initiating the relaxation response in our body, that rest and digest, that parasympathetic response, because when we're living with migraine, we're living with a hypersensitive, hyperactive nervous system that is on edge and high alert for triggers in the environment, if there's internal shifts with hormones, with our emotions. And so when the body and mind and brain are kind of revved up on this more active fight or flight tendency, it leads to the brain perceiving more fear, more danger, and increasing pain. And so yoga helps you practice relaxing, of feeling safe, and in turn, the safer our brain perceives the world, the less pain we have. And that is just the biology of how pain is experienced. It goes through the brain. So first, the stress reduction with a regular practice is so good and important for people living with migraine. Number two, many folks living with migraine also report their neck and shoulders being tense and in pain, especially with a migraine attack. So I see yoga as uniquely suited to also work with the neck tension that so many of us with migraine have, with regular stretching and also strengthening of the upper body to reduce the neck tension that also usually accompanies a migraine attack. Third, migraine makes it super hard for many people to exercise regularly, especially when you are at that chronic state. You don't have the energy, and literally a classification of migraine, a criteria for migraine is that exercise increases your symptoms. So I see yoga as a beautiful gateway form of exercise for people who have been unable to exercise regularly. And it's something that can be done regardless of what pain level that you're experiencing. Remember, yoga is much more than the physical poses and asana. That is kind of the main thing that people see in the West, but yoga involves breath, pranayama, involves meditation, dhyana, and all of these are working in conjunction so that when you practice yoga, it doesn't just mean physically. You can do meditation seated or lying down, and all of this is serving that same purpose of bringing you into deeper relaxation, helping you be more in tune with your body and mind, and helping you have more choice in how you respond to your pain and to the outside world. Finally, that idea of being more in tune with yourself, to me, it's this act of self-inquiry which helps people with migraine be more in tune with any subtle changes that do occur in their body and mind before they escalate and kind of overflow into a migraine attack. So that the more in tune you are with your body's signals, with your mind, you're not suppressing emotions, you're aware of how you're feeling, you're aware if you're feeling overwhelmed and tired. The sooner that you're picking up on these signals, you can make the right choices to take better care of yourself sooner, which will then help you avoid an increasing migraine attack. So that understanding of like your early warning signals also helps to prevent migraine attacks. And for me, yoga has been a beautiful safe space for me to feel literally safe in my mind and body, which helps decrease pain. And also, it's a safe place to challenge yourself a bit too, so that you are learning in a safe, controlled, baby step way to sometimes push yourself a little bit physically, to sometimes challenge your habitual thoughts and patterns about your pain, doing it in this very neutral, safe space so that you can start to push your edges of comfort. Living with migraine, it is important to be comfortable. However, the more that we avoid things, that physical activity, the weather, being outside, eating foods, that all starts to shrink our world. And it happens to, I would say, virtually everyone with migraine. We start to micromanage all the triggers and avoid so many things. But the way that our brain works is that the more that you're actually avoiding things, you actually develop more sensitivity to those things. So especially with something like physical exercise, it's the idea of like motion is lotion, that once that physical activity is so beneficial for so many aspects of our health, so that you can start to slightly increase physical activity in a safe way that doesn't trigger an attack, right? You're doing this very gently and safely, that this can really start to broaden your capacity and broaden your resilience, raise your migraine threshold in a safe way. So if you're joining me, if you have questions about how you can practice yoga safely, if you've had triggers in your yoga practice before, drop them in the comments. Let me know your questions. But I want to share about some of the evidence that supports why yoga can be beneficial for migraine. The research on yoga is increasing every single year on a variety of health conditions. So it's an exciting time where the ancient practices of yoga are now being affirmed and corroborated with real hardcore science and research in the modern sense. So yoga has definitely been shown in a variety of ways to help people, especially calm anxiety, depression. The mental health aspects are a big part of living with migraine. And so yoga, for one, can help you calm, to help you feel like you have more control on your responses to the world, to your sense of well-being. But 2 years ago in neurology, there was an important study that was published specifically on yoga and migraine. And this was an exciting study in which they tracked people with episodic migraine who did 3 hours of yoga a week, and compared to those who didn't. And they noticed that the people who practiced yoga regularly were able to decrease their headache days 48%, and their medication use went down a similar amount. So yoga helped, in this study from neurology, help people cut down their migraine days and medication use by nearly half. And that is the same result that inspired me to create my own group coaching program, Beyond Migraine, and is corroborated in my own evidence of my clients, in which we help people establish a daily 30-minute yoga practice, which ends up being about 3 hours a week. And that has helped my clients reduce their migraine days and their medication use at least 50%. Most people more, just within 8 weeks. So there is so much that can be studied that hasn't been done yet. There is some promising research already, but absolutely more is needed, specifically on migraine, especially because, the prevalence of migraine in the world is one of the top, is the second leading disability in the world. So research on migraine is always lacking, but this definitely has promise. So I'm gonna move on. Let me see if we've got Carolyn here. Great to have you. Reach out with any questions. Let's talk about what styles of yoga are more helpful for some folks than others. It's all very personal for you and your unique triggers. But I would say the most gentle forms of yoga are going to be the safest. And that's what I integrate in my yoga for migraine practices and classes. So the styles of yoga that I combine are yoga nidra, restorative yoga, yin yoga, and a gentle form of hatha yoga. So let's talk about these in order from least intense to slightly more intense. Yoga nidra is an amazing practice that is simply called, translated into Sanskrit, it's like yoga, sleep yoga. Nidra is like sleep. And it is a guided meditation that is done lying down, where you listen to someone guide you into this liminal space between wakefulness and sleep. And so it's a very deeply relaxing, nourishing practice, effortless, and gets you to that place where you're feeling restored. I often like to take yoga nidra naps when I'm feeling drained to help recharge me, but it has very profound benefits for your own consciousness on very deep levels in your subconscious and unconscious, to help you sort of rewrite some of the habitual thought patterns that are not helping you. It's some of the aspects are similar to hypnosis, in which you can create positive affirmations to really plant a seed in your subconscious to help you go towards what you want. Make space for that possibility. So yoga nidra is so helpful for my clients, especially for people who have difficulty with sleep, which is insomnia is the leading comorbid symptom, condition rather, of migraine. So many folks with migraine struggle with sleep, and this practice is so good at helping you to fall asleep more easily, to stay asleep. It helps you manage your energy. And you can't get more physically passive and relaxing than yoga nidra. Next, thank you, Carolyn. She mentioned Beyond Migraine has changed my life, freed me to enjoy life. Yay! That is my goal, and it's amazing to see how people's lives blossom so quickly in my group coaching program, Beyond Migraine. Just a little shout out, next week we are going to be starting a new promotion on Beyond Migraine with some extra special bonuses. If you're interested in learning more about the programs that I offer, we have everything from like very affordable, do-it-yourself, on-demand yoga for migraine practices to much more guided, comprehensive group coaching programs. In the comments, drop support. You can just write support, and I'll reach out to you to help find what the best program would be for you and your needs and budget. So let's return to some of the best practices if you're looking to get started in yoga. Yoga nidra, guided lying down meditation. The next slightly more active practice, only slightly, is called restorative yoga. And restorative yoga involves using props like pillows, blankets, bolsters to help your body deeply relax in a pose with full support for 3 minutes and up. So you're holding poses for a longer time, but they're effortless. They are you just surrendering and relaxing into that support. So restorative yoga, its goal is relaxation, effortless relaxation. So on a high pain day, restorative yoga and yoga nidra are my go-tos. They help me relax. They help make me feel nourished and supported. And oftentimes they have helped me reverse a migraine that's starting to go into effect, and help me recover if I've had having that migraine hangover, and you're just kind of not quite feeling 100%. So look out for those. The next level of intensity would be yin yoga, and yin yoga is a practice that combines Chinese medicine, the idea of like pressure points and meridians, into longer poses like restorative yoga. You don't necessarily always need to use the props. It's more optional. And the idea with yin yoga is that it's slow, it's passive, it's cool, but you're gonna get a little bit deeper sensation into your muscles, joints, and ligaments. The idea is to get stretch and opening in your deep tissue fascia, and that is how you can keep your range of motion, especially as you age. But it's also still quite gentle. It's not an active style of yoga. And then finally, the next style of yoga that would be a little more active than that would be a gentle hatha yoga practice. Hatha yoga is like the overarching umbrella for most of the styles of yoga we see in the West. It has many different variations to it, but it would be more of the classical yoga approach of holding poses, of including breath work. There might be some flow of movement in between poses, but it's not constantly flowing and moving like a vinyasa class. And when it's gentle, you can do hatha yoga in a chair, which we often do in my yoga for migraine classes, with the support of props. It's slower, less focus on getting a workout, and more focus on using our body, of opening our bodies with a combination of our breath and mind together. We're bringing together, we're yoking. Yoga means yoke, union, our mind, body, and spirit, and getting to that place of deeper balance. So I hope this helps you understand why yoga can be incredibly helpful for migraine, and to inspire you that this is something that you can do. I thought when I first got diagnosed with migraine that I had to give up my yoga practice, and through my own research and training in yoga, I found other practices that are a little less common, not like your everyday, yoga at the gym class, but are incredibly nurturing and powerful. And oh, great. And Barbara asked about neck issues. Wonderful. I will touch on that. So a big part of my yoga for migraine classes typically include some stretching and strengthening of the upper body and neck, since those are challenging areas for so many people living with migraine. So I encourage people to regularly stretch their neck. We can do one now. It can be as simple as when you're at your desk, of just letting one ear relax to one shoulder, sighing it out the mouth. And then I like to aid my movement of my head with my hand, and you can try the other side. So I do neck stretches throughout the day, whether I'm taking a little break at my desk, whether I'm on the toilet, to just keep that area tension free, to help release pressure there. But that said, it is important to also strengthen like the upper back, the shoulders. A lot of people's neck tension, it can be complicated, but when people's posture is rounded, when you're sticking out your neck, what people call like cell phone asana, right? Like all of this serves to exacerbate neck symptoms as well. So it is important to both stretch the neck, but also strengthen the upper back. But I absolutely, my focus in my yoga classes generally is on the upper body, because it is kind of all wrapped up in migraine. But that said, I don't think that you want to avoid doing neck stretches or strengthening as a matter of course. So it's finding that balance where you're introducing small, subtle stretches, especially if it's a place that stores a lot of tension, and just work baby steps to bring some more movement in there. We mentioned before, when you avoid movement, especially, you're only serving to reinforce danger in that part of the area, that you're fragile, that you're not resilient, and actually learning to move in a safe way by safely increasing movement in areas that do sometimes feel stuck. You're actually doing your body and your mind a greater service in the long run. But it's one of those where the balance, that Goldilocks amount of effort is important, because you don't want to overdo it, right? You don't want to do 30 minutes of neck stretches and then feel like you triggered a migraine attack the next day. So the effort that you bring to your yoga practice, I think, is really important for people living with migraine, especially if yoga is new. If you haven't done it for a while, if you haven't done exercise in a while, I recommend that you bring your 50 to 75% effort to the poses, where you are not hitting your maximum depth every time. You're testing out the waters. You can come back. The way that the pose interacts with your breath is a key feature to help you know how much to go into a pose. If your breath can stay light, it can stay steady, you're not feeling like your breath is increasing rapidly. If you feel like you can get out of a pose as mindfully as you get in the pose, then you're good. You are safe. You are at that right Goldilocks depth for you. But when you notice that your breath is starting to pick up, and you're not feeling as steady, it's a good time to take a moment, assess, do I want to pull back a little bit? Do I want to get out of the pose entirely? So I teach people in my yoga classes how to safely assess for themselves. It's that agency that you get to determine your yoga practice. You get to determine how you do a pose. There's endless variations on poses. You get to determine your effort. On a high pain day, my effort is less than if I'm having a low pain day. And that's okay. That's good that you're able to adjust your practice. I want to leave you guys with the idea that yoga is so flexible, no pun intended, to meet your needs, that you can do yoga on a high pain day, that you can do some lying yoga nidra meditation, you can do some neck stretches, that it's that dailiness that is really going to pay off in terms of reducing your symptoms and helping you live better. So that's why I love that. Sometimes living with migraine and the unpredictability of it, you can feel like it's just so hard to be consistent with exercise, and maybe you started walking, but then you get hit by a migraine attack, and then you couldn't get back up to where you were before, and you're starting over. Yoga is just endlessly flexible for you. There's no goal that you're trying to get to. It is meeting you with what you need that day, and helping you accept and love yourself where you are. The more that you are in tune with your own needs, you're caring for yourself, you're loving yourself, these acts of self-care help to teach your brain and your body that you're safe, and your pain will go down in turn. So if you are interested in learning more about any of my Yoga for Migraine programs, whether that's my do-it-yourself on-demand programs, my incredibly comprehensive and guided group coaching programs like Beyond Migraine. Type support in the comments. I will reach out. If there's any other questions that you have, if you watch this later, feel free to type them and I will get back to you. But lots of love to you guys. I will be coming out with a big promo next week with some really exciting bonuses for Beyond Migraine. So stay tuned, reach out. I'm here for you guys. See you next time.